Week 3 of our Overwhelming Armies series. So we've been focused on the overwhelming armies of Satan. Very morbid, right? And give you guys miserable stuff to talk about. But ultimately, what we've been doing is we've been talking about the armies of Satan and talking about how challenging these armies are, right? And remembering that the majority of what makes the army of Satan overwhelming is what? What is the reason the army of Satan is overwhelming? There's two reasons. Anybody remember? One is it's a lie. What's the other reason? What's the other reason? It's that we're doing it alone. When we make the mistake of attempting to combat Satan and his evil armies alone, I can take my shoes off. Sorry about that. Forgot. It's the problem with like the altar being the same level as the floor. You just forget things. But the problem that we have many times is that we make the mistake of believing that we have to deal with this alone. We have to deal with these challenges and these armies by ourselves. And when we forget that doing it by ourselves is usually the problem, we can't ever get to the solution. Okay, so that's the first. And the second is that it's a lie. You know, he's the equivalent of this big guy that you think you have to fight, and then when you actually throw a rock or something, it's like a bunch of holes, and it's a bunch of little kids inside in a little big guy costume. You know what I mean? A bunch of like midgets. Sorry for the. That wasn't very right, huh? That wasn't good. It's okay. Shout out to the vertically challenged. I'm with you. Diversity, we're there. Okay. These are the problems when this stuff is live streamed and recorded. It's just you never know what's going to come out. All right. So the first set of overwhelming armies that we spoke about were the overwhelming armies of pride. Right? We spoke about pride in the first meeting. And what did we talk about with pride? We talked about how many times we make the mistake of believing that we're alone and we have to do everything ourselves, and that's pride. And we believe that we have to get what we need when we need it because no one else will give it to us. And we believe that if we care for ourselves, then eventually we can care for others. And all of that is a lie because, as we know, that when you edge God out, you don't let God in and don't let him operate. And when you get what you need, that we spoke about were the overwhelming armies of anger, okay? And when we talked about anger, we talked about I can't control it, and it's blaming someone else, and I wish that I was someone else so I didn't have this problem, right? And we know that those are lies because in the end, yes, we can control it because he gives us a spirit of self-control. And we know that it's not about someone else's fault, it's about in confession realizing what we need to do better. And last but not least, it's not looking at I wish I was somebody else that didn't have this problem. It's realizing everyone's got their own stuff. They just carry it differently and being compassionate with how I carry my weakness, okay? So these were the first two overwhelming armies and how to overcome them. But today we're going to talk about a hard one. We're going to talk about lust, okay? Ooh, lust, big problem, right? Big problem. All right. Well, first off, the ladies in the room are like, this isn't a girl problem, stupid. This is for boys. No, it's not. Maybe you didn't sound like that. Probably didn't sound like that, actually, but it's fine. Come on closer. Nice try. Nice try. Come on closer. That's good. Caught you. Daniel, I'm letting you sit in the back. Good man. So many times we talk about lust and we talk about it just through the lens of sexuality and men being sexual creatures, that's their problem. But lust is a problem for everyone, right? Because we have to remember what is the definition of lust. So we're going to take it kind of level by level, the etymology or the history of the word lust. So in the Greek, the word is epithumeo. And the definition is desire or passionate longing. Desire or passionate longing, okay? So this is how lust is explained in the Greek. Why is that important? Because what it tells us is lust is looked at as not just sexual desire, even though sexual desire is a part of it, But it's about desire as a whole and passionate longing, desperately wanting something, okay? So let me ask you a question. Is lust bad? Okay, who says lust is bad? Raise your hand if lust is bad. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, who says lust isn't bad? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, and 6 people that just don't even want to answer because they're like, is he right? Is it wrong? Am I going to have to confess publicly? No, it's fine. Don't worry. It's all good. So, is lust bad? That was the question. Lust, like anger, is not bad by itself, right? God implanted desire in us. Let me be clear. If lust doesn't exist, kids don't happen. It's a fact, okay? It's like kids don't happen by osmosis, peeps. I'm just telling you, okay? So if desire is not a thing, there are no kids to bring. That's what happens. So lust is not bad, singularly. What is the problem with lust? Well, what do we define it as? Epithemeo, desire or passionate longing.
So I thought you described it as a desperate.
Desire or passionate longing. That's the epithemeo is the Greek. But for context's sake, I think it's probably appropriate that maybe we calibrate that, Shwaya. That's okay. So we'll calibrate it. And what we'll say is desire, right? So is desire wrong? And desire is the root of lust, right? So is desire wrong? No. When does desire become a problem? When it's excessive. What does excessive mean? What does that look like? That's a nice answer. When I prioritize it over God. I'm going to push. I like what you're saying, but I'm going to push because we got to think about this and pull it apart. So when we say when I prioritize it over God, what does that look like? When you act on it. So when you act on your desire, you're prioritizing it over God. Okay? Anybody else? Thoughts? What do you think? Mm-hmm. So desire is a problem when it's worldly. Could be. Okay? All right, cool. This is good discussion. We're onto something. I think it's fair to say that when desire overtakes our spirituality, when it's not moderated, when it's not managed, it becomes lust. And that's when it becomes a problem. So it's when we don't moderate it, when we're not in control of it, when it's running us versus us running it. Okay? Just like any other sin, any other vice. Okay, so that's what lust is. That's what desire is. And what's up? Somebody say something? Oh, I thought I heard something. That was weird. That's when we stumble. Let me ask you, when does lust destroy us? When does it destroy us? That's a great answer. That's a great answer, when we fight it on our own, okay? I can get in a fight and get punched in the mouth, and I feel like I'm dead, but I'm not really dead, right? So when does lust destroy us? We're going to think hard about this. It's important. It's part of the lie. Yep.
When we stop resisting it.
We're getting somewhere. I'm going to take you to the finish line because I like what you said. It's when we stop resisting, but really lust wins when it's over, in the end, right? We have to remember, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall. We're going to stumble. Whether it's pride, whether it's anger, whether it's lust, whether it's something else, we're going to struggle. But as long as we get back up, As long as we keep trying, that's all that matters. Every day is a new day for hope. Every day is a new day for hope. All right. So, summing this all up to kind of take the top piece of this. Lust is the Greek word epithumeo, which is desire and passionate longing. Desire exists in us and is natural. When desire overtakes our ability to moderate it, then desire becomes lust. Lust does not destroy until we stop resisting and it consumes us. That's what we just said, okay? So now what we're going to meditate on by the grace of God is, what are the lies of lust? After hearing all of that, what are the lies of lust? And how do we overcome those lies? Okay? So as always, 3. So, the first lie of lust. The first lie of lust. Is it really? Is it really? I'm struggling with lust. But am I really? Am I really struggling with lust? Isn't this natural? Didn't Abuna just say desire is natural? What do you mean I'm struggling with lust? It's a very aggressive statement. So, what did we say the definition of lust was again? Anybody remember? What did we say? Passionate desire and longing, right? Longing. One of the things that I think we make the mistake of is when we see the problem in front of us, we rationalize that it's not a problem. We rationalize that it's not a problem. This is no different than with anger. It's not really an issue. And then we get technical. If you look at the technical definition of lust, it means it consumes us. I'm not consumed. I'm doing fine. I just stumble in this once every 3 days. It's not like it's every hour. It's not like it's impacting my work every day, right? This is where it starts to get a little challenging, because we start painting this gray in what lust is. Start painting the gray. Well, because it doesn't stop me from doing what I'm supposed to do, it's clearly not actually lust. It's just more a longing or a stumble or a casual sin. Or we say to ourselves, you know what? I haven't gone all the way, so technically it's not really lust because I didn't give in. I just thought about it. So maybe I think that's a reach. Again, what is lust? Passionate longing that consumes, right? Passionate longing that consumes. How do you know if you're consumed? How do you know if you're consumed? Okay. School's on my mind. Does that mean I'm consumed? Maybe this is the wrong group to ask that to. A bunch of high achievers over here. Okay. So it's on your mind a lot. What else? What's another characteristic of something that's consuming us? Tiring. Can you tell me more about that? You're physically tired and you're spiritually tired. I mean, I love what you're saying. I just want to understand it more. Can you, when something is physically and spiritually tiring, what is that like for you? Can you explain that? Hmm.
When you separate yourself from God, you can feel it, and it's an empty hole in you, and so it comes out in your everyday life.
Here we go. Okay, now we're saying something really interesting, and I think this is what you were trying to say. Is what Mike is saying here is that it starts to suck us in, and it wears us down. It wears us down. You know, it's like we can't get out of the way of it. We constantly end up there. Anybody else, when something consumes us, how do we know we're being consumed? It's bringing out stuff. What's it bringing out? Negative outcomes. Can you give me an example? And this is, by the way, I'm not doing this because I'm trying to outsmart anybody. I want us thinking. I want us to pull this apart because it's easy to say, oh, it's consuming and it gets us. Yeah, we know that sucks, but what does consuming really mean? So what are some negative outcomes that consume us? Okay, distraction. What were you going to say?
I couldn't think of one.
Couldn't think of one, okay. I'm going to give you guys a really easy way to know if you're being consumed. You're defensive about it. You're defensive about it. If you think, if someone tells you, I noticed that your eyes kind of wander. No, they don't. What are you talking about? I look at the floor and say Psalm 50. That's what I do. You have an eye problem. Someone that says, I don't smile at every boy I see. I don't even smile. I don't even know what my teeth look like. You know? The number one way to know that you are being consumed is you deny it. It's not a problem. It's not an issue. I'm doing fine. I'm just going through what anybody's going through. Porn is normal. Looking at guys and girls is normal. Flirting and texting late is normal. I'm just doing it because I'm friendly. What do you mean I'm a flirt? I'm just a nice girl. I'm a nice guy. I'm just, this person's lonely. Lonely in Orange County, huh? 9 churches. 15 different youth groups and meetings, and they lonely. Get out of my face. Come on, man. Come on. Let's be real. When we start to look at the nuance of what a sin really is, that's when it's consuming us. When you start looking for the gray instead of accepting the black and white, that's when it's a problem. That's when it's starting to get to you. You know why? Because I want to be close enough to the fire to feel it. But I just don't want to get burned. But what we don't realize is when we're hanging around the fire, sometimes the wind blows a little hard and it burns you. I was praying liturgy in a different place this past weekend, and we were doing the Feast of the Cross, and we're doing a procession around the church, and they kept holding candles at every one of the stations, but like the way they were holding the candles, like their chairs like this, so it's not really easy to hold the candle. So there's like a guy standing at St. Mark, and there's one person standing like this, and one person like just, and I'm just like, that's fire. That's going to be a fire. Why? Because I know that if he trips, falls, the chair tips over, someone's game over, right? And what does that really mean? The point is, when we're consumed, we're right around the fire, but we don't think because it's burned us that we are. We're only consumed when it's the real bad stuff, when it gets to the very end. No, that's not the truth. That's not the truth. When we experience denial, we are starting to lose the battle. We're starting to be consumed. And so the first lie the devil tells us is, it's not really lust. It's just desire. It's just you being friendly. It's just normal to feel this, to do this. And by the way, lust, I'm bringing up the interpersonal. Lust is also lust for power, lust for growth, where I'm going to kill to get to the next level, right? It's not just the interpersonal. And this is a very common thing. See it in corporate America constantly. People that will cut each other at the knees. I remember when I went to law school, one of the biggest turnoffs, I've told a couple of you this story. was in the library studying during finals, and it was like, I remember this like clockwork. We were sitting, studying. The way it works in law school is it's one exam for the whole semester. That determines your grade. So it's like, and it can be on anything. So I'm like having a heart attack in my brain as I'm studying, trying to do this. And like there was this girl in our class who was brilliant, and she was going to wreck the curve. We knew she was going to screw all of us. She was going to wreck us and, you know, whatever. And we're studying, and it's like 3 days before finals, and we hear like a scream at like 2 in the morning. So of course a bunch of people go looking what happened. The girl had gone to the bathroom, and someone had gone and stolen her outlines. Now remember, I said it's one thing they can test you on the whole semester. So it depends on if you have good notes or not, if you're going to do okay. That's really the truth, because all your textbooks are just cases. It's not the notes, right? And she's having this meltdown, and all people were thinking was like, people would go this far for an A? Are we really there? But that's lust. That's lust, a passionate longing that consumes us. And you can just say, just being cutthroat, you know, it's just what it is. No. That's when you're lying to yourself. You are being consumed. They are friends. They are friends. Yeah, they are friends. Because we behold that thing as being so important to us that we desperately need it, right? And so for us as Christians, we have to be very careful on the consumption line, okay? Are we being sucked in, or are we managing this? And what is the number one way to manage whether or not it's a problem? Confession. Confession. There is no, I'm sorry, I'm saying this, and I know it's controversial, and I don't feel bad about saying it. And I will tell any of your parents to their face if I ever meet them, or your friends. Your father of confession is the number one objective voice in your life. The number one objective voice in your life. Why do I say that? Because your father of confession has your salvation on your mind over anything else. Doesn't matter what your status is, doesn't matter what happens with this person. I'm not thinking about fallout and consequences. I'm thinking about, is this going to get you on the path to God or not? Okay? So your father of confession is the person who can look at you when you say, you know, I fell in lust-ish. You know, I just kind of like, I was looking, and, you know, I looked away, though. I looked away. You know, and I did one of these. It's like, yeah, okay, how often is that happening? No, you know, every day that ends with a Y. Okay, we have a problem. We're kind of running into a thing, and the thing keeps happening. So we gotta work on this. You need somebody to look you in the eye and tell you the truth in a loving way. It's not, oh, you're going to go to hell pregnant tomorrow. This is horrible. No. Calm down. Okay? It ain't all that. I keep forgetting there's a camera. Bro, I don't feel bad about that. That's just what it is, okay? So, somebody's at home offended. You did it. That's why you offended, because you do it, all right? That's it. So, but listen, what ends up happening, we're not catastrophizing. Fathers of confession don't catastrophize, they rationalize. We're going to tell you the truth because we love you, because we're worried about you, because we think this can go somewhere it's not supposed to go if you don't wake up now. Okay? So when someone comes and tells you, hey, there's something going on, it's a real problem, open your ears. Open your ears. When you start to argue that it's not a problem, that's when I'm telling you, all of you here, so you know, if you are struggling with a sin, and someone tells you, this is a thing you're struggling with, and you say, no, I'm not because X, Y, and Z, and you don't understand, you probably have that problem. It's deeper than you think. Right? You guys, the kids say it's not that deep. No, it is. It is exactly that deep. Okay? Mm-hmm. Nailed it. Mike, for the win right there. We do not know ourselves as well as we think. I would even challenge you to say that we do know ourselves, but we want to lie to ourselves, and we're the easiest people to lie to. Yeah? Because deep down, you know it's a thing. You know there's something drawing you. You may not pinpoint it as that thing, but you know there's something. I believe most people have an idea. They have an idea. Maybe they haven't named it, but they have an idea. People name their anger passion. It's anger. Okay.
When someone is in deep, of any of the deep sins, right, they're really delved in. I have this theory that's essentially they've given up their will, like they no longer have it, and so they're consumed by these sins, and they no longer have their will until they find repentance, until they find their path back, where God puts it in front of them. They are now in like this disarray of just instinct, essentially.
I wouldn't say instinct, I would say impulse, but it's not. I want to be careful about that, because it's not that you don't have will anymore. You always have will. You know what you're doing is you're making a conscious choice every time you stumble in that sin to give your will up in that moment. All right? Yeah. So always in that moment you're choosing to give your will up, because what we're saying is there's always a way. There's always a day you can say no. 13.
He who covers his sins will not prosper, but whoever confesses and forsakes them will have mercy.
Keep going. Next one.
Happy is the man who is always reverent, but he who hardens his heart will fall in calamity.
Guys, pay attention. This is important right here. Confession, this is telling you in Proverbs what confession. He who covers his sins, who lies to himself, who tells himself it's not a problem, he's not going to prosper. He's not going to go anywhere. But he who confesses and forsakes them, walks away, or says it's a problem, they will have mercy. What is the mercy? That the passion is cooled. That is the mercy. Happy is the man. Happy if I'm reverent. What does it mean to be reverent? To say, no, this is a thing. I'm really struggling. I got to get out of this. But if you harden your heart, you fall into calamity. You know why? Real simple. Usually I get a person. Today, I'm going to be the example. What you're doing is you're standing up on this thing, okay? And if you're reverent, you're always away from the edge. But when you harden your heart, what you're doing is you're tipping, and you're tipping, and you're tipping, and eventually you fall into calamity. How it goes. It does not happen overnight, but it happens night by night. Okay? So the first lie the devil tells us is it's not a problem. And the answer to know whether or not it is confession. Okay? That's the first lie the devil tells us. The second lie the devil tells us about lust, it's only my problem. Let's say khalas, okay? I've accepted I have a lust thing, and I'm working on my lust thing, okay? I can't keep my eyes to myself, can't keep my hands to myself. I desire this and this and this. I'm flirtatious. I, text late. I do all whatever. But you know what, Abuna? I'm doing this in the privacy of my own home. The only person that knows I'm doing this is the person I'm texting. The only person that knows is me. I'm watching porn in my room. What's the big deal? It's my thing. Let me ask you a question. Any other type of thing we like to do socially, okay? Social is a bad word. Anything that we like to do. Let's say we like to have a drink, we like to go out with people, we like to dance, whatever. When does it become a problem? Can't hear you.
When it consumes you.
When it consumes you, okay? That's what we talked about earlier, okay? But let's say on the way to consuming you, someone asked me today, oh, is drinking bad for you? I said, this is the worst question I get. And I'm like, no, you can have a drink. It's not the end of the world. I understand. But I asked another question. Tell me a little bit about the people in your circle. Yeah, there are no benefits to alcohol. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Finishing what I'm trying to say here. And I asked this person, I said, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your circle of friends? And I said, okay, let's say that having a drink doesn't hurt you. Do you know the predispositions of anybody in your group of friends if they're predisposed to alcoholism? No. Okay. Do you know if anybody has an issue with substance abuse? No. Do you know if anybody just goes crazy and likes to have a good time and they're looking for an excuse? No. I said, okay. So it's not always about you and how you're going to handle your thing. Sometimes it's about how others handle the same thing. Okay? So, how do we apply this to lust? Say we're out, and I'm in a relationship and my eyes wander. And my spouse notices that my eyes wander. Is she affected by the fact that my eyes wander? Why is she affected? It's my problem. I'm struggling with it. Why is she affected? Tell me more about that. That's a great answer. She's part of my life. But what does that mean? Like, how does it affect her? Just because she exists in my circle?
Just because she exists in my circle. No, you have a promise with this other person, and
Okay.
this promise is staying faithful. So when you do things like wander,
Okay. How does it make that person feel?
maybe not good enough.
Okay. Now we're tapping into an insecurity. Okay. So spouse is easy, right? Because it's haram. You're not supposed to do that. What about a friend? Say I'm hanging out with my friends and I make a comment.
I think at the end of the day, you're responsible for everybody who's in your life, including your friends.
Oh, now we make a very, very bold statement. I am responsible for everybody in my life. I'm responsible for everyone in my life. I know not every person in the room agrees with that, so I want to know who has a different opinion, if anybody. Go ahead, Gabs. Okay. Okay. So, a little bit of dissension here, which is okay. It's okay. It's okay to have different opinions here. Let's talk a little bit more about it and see if we can get to the heart of it. I'm out with my friends, and they are normal adults, just like me. And one of my friends starts making inappropriate comments about girls that walk by, or decides to be flirtatious, or whatever. How do you think that impacts me? How does it impact me?
So you are who...
You get used to it? Okay, hang on, I'm going to toss this to you.
The other one is full too, if you want.
You get used to it.
If you get used to it, let me ask you a question. What does that mean?
Becomes normalized.
You normalize something in your life that maybe wasn't there before. Okay. Mike, you said something.
You are the accumulation of your friends.
You are
People
the
you're closest to are a reflection of who you are.
You're a reflection of the 5 closest people to you. Okay. What else happens, guys, if I'm around someone that's doing this stuff? Gabs just needs the mic behind you.
I was just going to say, you open yourself up to that potential temptation that other person's also doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it can just become normal to you. Or you could also begin to do the same thing that they do and fall into that same temptation.
But hey, aren't they responsible adults on their own? Don't they have to make their own choices? Like, don't put your evil on me, Ricky Bobby. That's your thing, right? But what do you think? What do you think?
The one thing that comes to mind is that one verse that says to flee from the appearance of evil, and even that appears to be evil, even though it may seem innocent or like subtle. And so at that moment, your job to decide if you want to open yourself up to more of that, because once the devil has a foot in, he'll just take over really fast. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Love it. So, very easy answer to this, not to marginalize the nuance, but let's go to 1 Corinthians 8:13. Eight 13. 13. One more. Okay. Gabs, can you read this for me?
Yeah. Their food, wow, I'm hungry. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never again eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble.
Okay. So, biblically, what does this tell us? Well, for those of you who are fasting, you're like, I don't care. Once the siyam is over, I'm eating all the meat. Stumble all you want, brother. I don't care. But if we apply this to our lives and our conversation right now, we have a responsibility, not the responsibility, to be a light and an icon for those that we love and that those that are in our world. When we fall into lust constantly, and it becomes something that starts to affect us, so they can get the same attention because that's what they want. If I am watching pornography and I am struggling with masturbation and I am struggling with physical intimacy, and that becomes a part of my life, I start to be consumed by that. And what happens is, whether I know it or not, when I'm outside, I am constantly looking at the opposite sex in an objectified way. And when I am doing that, people that are with me notice I'm doing that. Sometimes people of the opposite sex. And that changes my relationship with them. They look at me differently. They may either think it's okay to do that kind of stuff, or they want nothing to do with me. Either way, I've stumbled them. And this is the key, is whether we know it or not, when we are consumed by a vice, we're talking about lust, but whether it's anger or pride or envy, whatever, when we're consumed by that, others feel it. Others feel it. They feel what we're doing and what we're struggling with. Someone recently, we were talking, and we were saying that in the priesthood, there's an element of humanizing the priesthood that we have to do, where we look at priests as though they're like these beings that can do anything and they're just whatever, they do no wrong, right? And when you see a priest that's silly, goofy, whatever, ridiculous, or passionate, maybe gets irritated, makes a mistake, it humanizes the priesthood, that we're not above reproach. We're men and we're sinful. But there's a balance. Because if you fall into anger all the time, and you fall into aggression, and you fall into pride, and you fall into these things, you can stumble people the other way. This is a man of God. That is one of the main problems in the Catholic Church right now, is that we saw so many of our brothers fall in consuming sins that it undermined the priesthood itself. Okay? Undermined the priesthood itself. So the point is, if we allow ourselves to be consumed by a vice, and remember, consumed, I'm denying it's a problem. I'm not actively working on it. I affect the people around me that matter. I affect the people that I care about. Some of us guys, we have younger sisters. We'd never want them to be objectified. Some of us girls, we have brothers or other sisters, and we wouldn't want them to get hurt or fall into physical intimacy the way that we did or do. These are real things. These are real things, real struggles, real problems, okay? And so what we learn more than anything is that fellowship should motivate sacrifice. Fellowship should motivate sacrifice. If you're not better for yourself, be better for the person next to you, because they matter. Their salvation matters. There are days that we all struggle, whatever our beloved sin is. If we are not careful, other people are consumed by our weakness instead of being consumed by his strength. Okay? So we have a responsibility as Christians to resist for the sake of protecting those that we love. Let's go to the verse, or the chapter, let's go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 16. Anne, can you read it? Get you a microphone.
But do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased.
And to share. Okay? The good that I do, I must share it. The discipline I have in my life, I must share it. That doesn't mean tell everybody, look, I look at the sky when I walk around, everyone. Do what I'm doing. No, that's not what we're saying, right? But when we are restrained, when we are in self-control, when we do our part for others that we love, then we grow. It's a sacrifice. Whether it's for you or for someone else, it's a sacrifice. And one thing I will tell y'all about sacrifice, God don't take it lightly. Think about Abraham and Isaac. Abraham sacrifices Isaac, right? Now, you don't read of any other sacrifice prior to Abraham and Isaac being interrupted, let alone a goat magically appearing. Okay? Well, ram, but whatever. You get my point. The Lord saw the sacrifice of Abraham, and he honored the sacrifice. The Lord sees our labor, and he blesses it. The Lord saw the sacrifice of Abraham, saw the sacrifice of Noah. Years and years and years of preaching about the flood, and he made sure to save his family, okay? And gave him the grace to do something that should have killed him. Anytime we sacrifice for God, God doesn't lose sight of it. So when you sacrifice for yourself, God doesn't lose sight of it. When you sacrifice for others, God doesn't lose sight of it. Because he says share. Because those sacrifices, God is well pleased in them. Okay? So the first lie that we overcome in lust is the lie of, is it really lust? And the way that we know if we're being consumed is we're denying it. And the way that we shine a light on it to disabuse ourselves of that is the sacrament of confession. The second lie is it's only my problem. Nobody else suffers from it. And the remedy for that is fellowship and the sacrifice of fellowship. Okay, now the last point. And this is the last lie of lust. It's gone too far. It's gone too far. Okay. Biro, you're good at this. Come here. Okay, I need someone to get a timer on their phone. All right? Stopwatch. Okay? So here's what I need from you. No more than 2 per row. All right? And we're going to give them 30 seconds. Okay. Everybody, by the way, the rows that don't count are the rows that are occupied. So you can skip over this row. You can cuss somebody, I'm going to end the talk. I'm just telling you. All right? 30 seconds. Ready? Go. Oh my God. He didn't need 30 seconds. He did not need 30 seconds. Are we at 30? Did we get it? 10? Oh my gosh. Okay, no, we're done. That's good. Good job. Guys, someone give Biro a round of applause. All right. Now, you know what's the worst part of what he doesn't know? He's going to pick him up. He's going. so glad the live stream can't see the damage that you did. I'll just tell y'all at home, it was bad. It was bad. Like, honestly, I know now that if the church ever gets trashed, it is absolutely you. There's no one else that could have done this. You are a hurricane. No, you don't have to fix them now. We'll fix them later. It's okay. Have a seat. That was really impressive. Okay. Robert, let me ask you a question. Do you know how long it took you to do all that damage? 10 seconds. Okay. Was it 10? 10. Okay. Robert, let me ask you another important question. Do you think you can put all of this back? No, not in 10 seconds. But could you put it back? Yeah. Can you tell me why you think you can put it back? Okay. So how long it actually took you, that's one thing. What else? Any other reasons why you think you can put it all back? Nothing's broken, just tipped over. Very, very cool. Do you have an idea of where everything goes? Cool. Thank you for that. You're really good at this. I'm really pleased with my decision on this one. Guys, that was a very exaggerated example. But one of the number one things that we do when we're dealing with lust, especially lust, is we tell ourselves there is no coming back. There is no coming back. Correct. Okay.
First time might be that not anything is broken, but maybe the second time or the third time something will go out of place.
You're not wrong about that.
And so I think it's really important to make people realize that these sins are damaging and it can be permanent damage.
I don't think anyone said nothing's damaging. I don't think anyone said that there isn't permanent damage. Okay? So, for example, are any of you going to forget that he did this? No, that's embedded in your mind. He did it. That's not going anywhere. To give the context that Mike's talking about, which is fair, when we fall in lustful sins, specifically lustful sins, there are things that stick with us. Okay? There are natural consequences for our decisions. When we lose our virginity, when we become obsessed with pornography, when we become a flirtatious personality, when we dress provocatively because we want attention, all these things are lustful things, right? When we do this and it becomes normal in our life, there are consequences. There are consequences. There are things that we deal with after that. Many of those things are we've set unrealistic standards for our spouse one day. We've created an insecurity with our partner. We've lowered our threshold for what we think we deserve. And this is where I'm going to pause it, okay? And this is where I'm going to pause it, because these are all real life consequences. But the number one thing that we do that is impermanent, not permanent, impermanent, is we tell ourselves, that's it. I've gone too far. There's no return. So to your point, yeah, there are things that happen. But one of the things we have to be very careful about is understanding that while there are natural consequences for the things that we do wrong, none of that precludes us from salvation. None of that precludes us from still having a good marriage. None of that precludes us from still having a life with God the way that we're supposed to. St. Paul murdered people, okay? St. Moses the Strong murdered people, pillaged, adulterer, rapist, okay? Those are real things.
if you know it's wrong now, why add unnecessary hardships on yourself and others when it can be taken care of sooner than later? I think that's something that can be a lot of the times, oh, I'm going to get over this later. I'm going to do this when I get married, or I'm going to do that when I... but I think these things can carry on to after the fact if you don't take care of it as soon as you know that it's the problem and it's something you need to take care of.
Well, I would challenge what you're saying, because I don't think some of us get to the finish line, period. I think some of us tell ourselves we can't get married in the church anymore because we've done these things. And we can't have a relationship with a good God-fearing person because we've done these things. We start to tell ourselves horrible lies about because we've fallen in lust or we're struggling with a thing, that's it. We can't have good things. That is not acceptable. Sorry, if you got a sexually transmitted disease, you're going to struggle with that. That's going to be your thing. Nothing to say. Okay? If you've committed infidelity, you're going to struggle with that. That's your thing. You're going to deal with the consequences of those difficult decisions. But the idea that it cannot be overcome, that this is just my vice that I have to deal with and accept because I just can't get back, this is a lie. And this is not okay. This is the number one thing we have to know about any of our weaknesses and the overwhelming armies. And that comes to the hope of understanding his love, okay? The hope of understanding his love. I think when we think about God's love, we say God's love is unconditional, and it is. But I'm going to push some of you guys, because I think some of us believe that there are circumstantial components to God's love. No. God waits for the heart that wants to come home. He waits for those that are trying to get back. And one of the things that we can't forget is it's okay. We made a mistake. When I say it's okay, it doesn't mean, no big deal. No. Most of you, because you're good people, the concern I have is not that you're not going to have remorse. The concern I have is you're not going to forgive yourself. You're going to lower what you think you deserve. You're going to tell yourself that I can't marry that person that's into Tazbaha and does this and does that because I'm being consumed by this and I know that they're too good for me. Nah, not okay. Because God's looking at you today, and God's looking at your journey now. Not your journey yesterday, not how lost you were 6 years ago. You figured it out, and you're working on yourself. That means you're on the right path.
I think when you tell yourself these things, you're hardening your heart. You're actually, God is trying to tell you, I've forgiven you, and you're continuously hardening your heart. And I think that can lead to more sin because you feel hopeless.
It's almost as though you're giving my talk. Just kidding. Yes. No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. It's very easy for us at this time to fall into more sin because we're normalizing our weakness and saying that this is just me. I can't be better than this. You're struggling with pornography, it happens. Work on it. Pray about it. Put in the labor. We'll get through it. You're struggling with flirtatiousness, provocativeness, lusting in your career. Put the work in. We'll get past it. None of it lowers what you deserve. When people struggle with the beloved sin of lust, it feels like it's a worse sin. It feels like it. But it's a sin. And everyone's got a beloved sin they're dealing with. And we have to remember that if we're working on our beloved sin, other people are working on theirs too. And God will pair us up where we're supposed to be paired with the person that will help us get out of this snare. We're not alone. And He won't leave us alone. So stop telling yourself you have to be alone, that you deserve less. Whatever we've done, we repent, we pick up, and we move on. I think with lust, this is the hardest one for us. I have people as they get older and they start to get into marriage age, they ask me questions like, should I be telling my spouse that, I lost my virginity, like on your first dinner date? Is that what you're asking? Like, why? Because I did it and it's horrible. And I hate myself. Yeah, that's a bigger problem. The bigger problem is you haven't forgiven yourself for what you're struggling with. That's not okay. That's not what God's saying. You're struggling, but you're fighting. Let go. Try. Do the work. He's doing his. Okay? If you don't try, that's different. But I don't worry about that in here. We're putting in the work, and God will do his. I'm going to leave you guys. With a quote from my guy, St. Augustine. Find it here. Come on, man. Here it is. So by fixing our hope up above, we have set it like an anchor on firm ground, able to hold against any of the stormy waves of this world, not by our own strength, but by that of the one in whom this anchor of our hope has been fixed. Because when he causes us to hope, he will not disappoint us, but will in due course give us reality in exchange for the hope. I will give you reality. I will give you what you need in exchange for hope. How amazing is that promise? He says, whatever you are fighting, I will give you what you need if you only come to me, if you only believe I can make it better. We need to throw ourselves at his feet in prayer. These beloved sins, these things you hate about yourself on that altar, the rest of Lent. Leave this for him and read his promises of deliverance. And remember that when I fix my hope above, I am anchored in heaven. And when I am anchored in heaven, anchored with hope, he will take the currency of hope and he will exchange it for the reality of salvation. To sum it up, the three lies the devil tells us about lust. Number one, is it really lust? And the answer is yes. It consumes when we deny. We overcome through confession. The second is it's only my problem. No, we stumble others. So fellowship in sacrifice. And the last is it's gone too far. And the answer is no, the hope of understanding his love through prayer. And glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. So this one was a little bit longer today. I apologize. Usually we're 45, but we got beat pretty good. Questions, comments, concerns? Gabs, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
If people know about that, and usually, especially in marriage, when there's infidelity, everyone finds out about it, and that person is just completely ostracized. So, can you speak on that and how we could be better at humanizing them? Because I think another lie is like the devil wants us to demonize them and see them as someone who
Yeah.
is unclean.
That's a great question. So, yeah, there's a very fine line between humanizing and validating, right? And we have to be very careful about that, and that we're not going to validate, bad behavior, especially those that don't come with remorse. And remorse is really the biggest characteristic. When you see that someone is remorseful, you know it. You know it based on how they interact, how they communicate, things of that nature. If they act as though nothing happened, no, there's a bigger problem, right? Mike, don't worry about it for now. Just come sit, bro. Just come sit. Because then everyone's going to get up. I want us to do it as a group. It'll be a group activity for us at the end. So the way that we create a support group for people that have fallen in beloved sins and begin to hate themselves, the first is the importance of prayer. Okay? So if we know there's someone that's going through that, we should be putting their name on the altar. Okay? The second thing is we should be letting Abuna know, if Abuna doesn't already know, that this person is struggling with even their security and their faith, right? So that the priest can go. But when it comes to creating a circle, I was telling this to somebody today, sometimes it's about keeping it light and encouraging. You're trying to give them a normal world. And then bit by bit, when it starts to feel normal, then we can communicate about the hardship and what happened. And we can encourage. But it's like when someone loses a loved one, and everyone just comes and says, it's going to be okay, he's in a better place. Yes, all of that is true. Is that the first thing somebody needs to hear when they lost somebody? No. That is unbelievably hard. And I am so sorry. And you take as much time as you need to grieve, and you call me when you need me. And I text you to make sure that I invite you to things and to check on you and let you know I'm thinking about you. It's things like that. And it shouldn't just be one person. It should be a unit of people. It's a good point. Look, you don't just go tell any random Abuna, right? We have to use wisdom and judgment. So number one, does the person have a father of confession? Do they have a good relationship with them? Is that father of confession someone they feel like they can talk to? Someone that you feel like you can talk to? There was somebody once upon a time in my life that was going through a very difficult thing. And I did not know how much his father of confession knew, but the thing was hitting a pitch and it was becoming bad. And I said, look, I don't know your relationship with him, but I think you're pretty cool. So I think you're going to be okay if you know this. This is how I would handle it if I were you. But you do what you think is right according to your wisdom. And there are priests who will say thanks and they'll pray about it. And then they'll make a judgment call. And there are priests that will jump head in because they have that relationship. But when you let a priest know, you're not telling them what to do. You're letting them know what's going on so they can choose what to do. You give them every bit of information you have and then ask that God give them the wisdom to make the choice that will edify that person and help them. Make sense? Cool. Questions? Okay. Takeaway. One thing you took away from the meeting.
Can I have a minute to think about it?
I need a minute too. I'm thinking about it right now. One of the tricks that the devil tries to tell us about lust is that it's like we're the only ones going through it. And what was it? Yeah, I guess that was one thing.
One thing that I took away was one of the lies where it's like I went too far. It's never always too far. Like, sure, the damage may seem like a lot, but over time it can be repaired. And yeah.
The spirit can be repaired. The spirit can be repaired. We're not going to go to everybody. There's too many of them. All right, glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the blessing of our fellowship, Lord. We ask that we please are given the wisdom and the strength